The Bible is not just a book about faith and salvation. It is also a treasure trove of dramatic stories, characters with strong and conflicting personalities. Among them are women who stand out not only for their beauty and intelligence, but also for their cruelty and danger. You won't believe what they did to achieve their goals. Get ready, because in today's video we will explore the 5 most dangerous and wicked women in the Bible who left a dark mark on religious history. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any videos from our channel, where we offer inspiring and deep insights into the Bible and faith. Number 1. Jezebel. Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of Sidon and high priest of Astarte, the pagan goddess, made a profound impact on the history of the Bible. Her marriage to Ahab, king of Israel, was not only a political alliance but also opened an era filled with religious and power struggles. Jezebel was a devoted worshipper of Baal, the god of the Canaanites, and she relentlessly promoted the worship of Baal and Asherah in Israel, leading the nation into grave moral decay. Her cruelty was not only evident in her actions but also in her dark plots to replace the worship of Yahweh. Jezebel built her own temple and altar for Baal, spreading pagan worship throughout every corner of Israel, causing the nation to turn away from the Lord God. Along with her influence, she led King Ahab to abandon the faith of his ancestors, leading the entire nation into false rituals. 1 Kings 16:31-33. Her actions were not only religious but also a politically calculated strategy, as she intertwined Israel's religious practices with the values of her homeland. One of the most controversial and terrifying acts in Jezebel's career was the killing of Naboth, an upright man who owned a vineyard Ahab coveted. When Naboth refused to sell, Jezebel devised a vile plan to falsely accuse him, leading to his unjust execution, so Ahab could seize the vineyard. 1 Kings 21:7-16. This action not only demonstrated her maliciousness, but also showed Jezebel's willingness to employ any means, including deceit and crime, to achieve her goals. When Elijah, the prophet of Yahweh, dared to confront Jezebel and her family, she became enraged. After Elijah's famous victory over the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel, Jezebel vowed revenge. She swore to kill Elijah, forcing him to flee for his life. 1 Kings 19:1-2. This relentless pursuit reflected Jezebel's extreme hatred for anyone who opposed her religious plans, especially the prophets of Yahweh. Jezebel's cruelty did not end there. She ordered the extermination of all the prophets of Yahweh, creating an atmosphere of fear and oppression for those loyal to God. 1 Kings 18:4. One of God's servants, Obadiah, had to hide 100 prophets in caves to protect them from Jezebel's wrath. Ultimately, her cruel life ended tragically when Jehu, at the command of the prophet Elisha, arrived in Jezreel to overthrow the house of Ahab. In her final attempt to resist, Jezebel adorned herself and taunted Jehu from the window, but her end was tragic. Jehu ordered her to be thrown from the window, and the horses trampled her body, leaving only her head, hands, and feet, just as Elijah's prophecy had foretold. Dogs will devour Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. 2 Kings 9:30-37. Jezebel's legacy serves as a warning about the brutality and destructive nature of sin. Her name became a symbol of betrayal and crime, as well as a vivid testament to the devastating power of wickedness and the fact that divine justice will never be overlooked. Number 2. Athalia, the cruel and ambitious queen. Athalia, the daughter of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel, was born into a family renowned for its cruelty and idolatry. She not only inherited power, but also continued the corrupt practices her parents had established in Israel. As the child of 2 Israelite kings, Athalia grew up in an environment dominated by power and ambition, where power was held above all else. After the death of her parents, Athalia sought not only to protect the throne but also to expand and solidify her own power at any cost. Athalia's marriage to Jehoram, king of Judah, was a politically motivated union with a clear purpose. This alliance strengthened her power by merging the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. However, when her husband died, and her son Ahaziah succeeded to the throne, the situation quickly shifted. Ahaziah ruled Judah for a brief time and lacked the strength to maintain power. After Ahaziah's death in a war with Aram, Athalia saw the opportunity to seize the throne of Judah and did not hesitate to do whatever was necessary to achieve her goal. When Athalia learned of her son's death, she immediately ordered the execution of every royal family member she believed might threaten her power. According to 2 Kings 11:1-3, she commanded the killing of anyone who could be a legitimate heir, even children. But a brave woman, Jehosheba, secretly hid her nephew Joash in the temple of God. Jehosheba, the sister of Ahaziah, saved Joash, a direct descendant of David, thus protecting the future of the kingdom of Judah and the line of King David. For 6 years Joash was hidden in the temple, while Athalia continued to rule Judah with tyranny and cruelty. Athalia's reign was not only a bloody period but also one of religious corruption. She continued to promote idolatry, a legacy inherited from her parents. This led Judah to continue its descent into the worship of Baal and Asherah, just as had happened under the reigns of Ahab and Jezebel in Israel. Athalia used her power to maintain the dominance of foreign gods, which not only destroyed the faith of the people, but also plunged the nation into corruption. However, Athalia's reign eventually faced resistance. Jehoiada, the high priest of the house of David, loyal to both the Davidic line and God, decided to take action. After hiding Joash in the temple for 6 years, Jehoiada planned a coup to restore the throne to Joash and overthrow Athalia. He allied with military leaders and temple guards to prepare for the uprising. When Joash was only 7 years old, Jehoiada proclaimed him the legitimate king of Judah, sparking great excitement among the people. The people, weary from Athalia's brutal rule, quickly rallied behind Joash. Hearing the cheers of the people and the sound of trumpets signaling change, Athalia rushed to the temple to confront the situation. However, when she saw Joash firmly seated on the throne, crowned and triumphant, she tore her clothes and cried out, "Treason! Treason!" a display of desperation and anger as she realized her power had slipped away. But she could not escape her fate, as Jehoiada ordered her arrest and the execution of any who supported her. Athalia was dragged out of the temple through the horse gate, where she was executed, marking the end of her tyrannical reign. 2 Kings 11:12-16. The death of Athalia not only ended her tyrannical rule but also marked the restoration of the Davidic line through Joash. Under Joash's leadership, Judah slowly began to recover and reform its religion, gradually returning to God and his values. The life and death of Athalia serve as a profound lesson on ambition and cruelty, reminding us that power, if left unchecked, leads to destruction. Her reign stands as a clear testament to the consequences of power abuse and ruthless cruelty, serving as a warning to all who seek power without integrity. Number 3. Herodias, the queen of hatred and ruthless manipulation. The story of Herodias is one of hatred and power in the Bible, where greed and scheming led a woman to commit unimaginable acts. Herodias was a prominent member of the Herodian dynasty, the ruling family of Judea, where marriages were not mere expressions of love, but political strategies to consolidate power. Initially, Herodias married Herod Philip, her uncle, but when she left him to marry Herod Antipas, his cousin and tetrarch of Galilee, she sparked a marriage that was not only ethically controversial but also violated Jewish law. Herodias' life was not confined to complicated marriages and political strategies. She became a prominent figure not for virtue or talent, but for her deep-seated hatred and boundless ambition. She was driven by cunning and an unyielding desire for power at any cost. Herodias' name remains etched in history due to her confrontation with John the Baptist, a prophet known for his honesty and courage. This conflict was not just a simple dispute, but a battle between good and evil, between righteousness and ruthless ambition. When John publicly criticized her unlawful marriage to Herod Antipas, Herodias could not tolerate the insult. It was then that her hatred flared up intensely, and she set her mind on executing a cunning and ruthless revenge. The perfect opportunity to execute her scheme came on the birthday of Herod Antipas. At the lavish banquet, her daughter Salome captivated everyone, especially King Herod, with her dance. At this moment, King Herod, enchanted by Salome, promised her anything, even half his kingdom. However, it was Herodias who cleverly manipulated her daughter to request the priceless gift, the head of John the Baptist on a platter, Mark 6:24-25. According to the Gospel of Mark, Herod Antipas did not want to kill John the Baptist because he enjoyed listening to the prophet's teachings, Mark 6:20. Moreover, Antipas may have feared that if John was killed, his followers would revolt, causing unrest in the kingdom. Although Herod Antipas felt uneasy and distressed at having to carry out this request, as he respected John and knew he was a righteous man, he could not break the oath he had sworn in front of all the guests at the banquet. Therefore, Antipas had no other choice but to order his soldiers to arrest and execute John, leading to the death of the famous prophet. His head was brought on a platter and handed over to Herodias through her daughter, Mark 6:27-28. Herodias may have felt victorious in that moment, but the price of this revenge was not only John's death but also a profound violation of her soul. She not only killed a righteous man, but also defiled herself in the process. Although she achieved a temporary victory, Herodias' life was far from peaceful. Shortly afterward, Herod Antipas's power began to weaken. After being accused of treason and disloyalty, Roman Emperor Caligula ordered his exile to Gaul, marking the end of his and the Herodian family's rule. The story of Herodias serves as a warning about the destructive power of anger and greed. She not only manipulated her daughter to carry out her wicked scheme, but also proved that power can obscure all conscience and humanity. Herodias' legacy is not just a symbol of vengeance, but a testament to the perilous path of power manipulation and the catastrophic consequences that hatred can bring. While the Bible does not recount Herodias' final days, her story remains a powerful reminder of moral decay and the inevitable consequences when a person becomes consumed by greed and blinded in the pursuit of power. Number 4, Delilah, the betrayer woman and the endless greed. Among all the stories of betrayal and deceit in the Bible, the story of Delilah stands out as one of the most prominent examples of manipulation and boundless greed. Delilah lived during the turbulent period of the Judges, when Israel was constantly threatened by neighboring nations, particularly the Philistines. Although she lived near the region of Sorek, which had close ties with the Philistines, the exact origin of Delilah is not clearly recorded. However, her actions clearly indicate a connection with the Philistine leaders, Israel's bitter enemies. Delilah is most famous for her role in the tragic downfall of Samson, one of Israel's great judges known for the extraordinary strength granted to him by God. The Philistines, fearing Samson's strength and his heroic deeds, sought to bring him down at all costs. For this reason, they chose Delilah as the instrument to carry out their plan. The Philistine leaders bribed Delilah with a large sum of money to uncover the secret of Samson's strength. Judges 16:5. Tempted by greed, Delilah agreed and began to approach Samson. Delilah persistently persuaded Samson to reveal the secret of his strength, a miraculous strength granted to him by God's consecration from the time he was in his mother's womb. Although Samson gave several false answers, Delilah's persistence and relentless pressure eventually wore him down, and he revealed the truth about his strength. In an emotional moment, as described in Judges 16:16-17, Samson finally said, "If my head is shaved, my strength will leave me, and I will become weak like any other man." With the truth in her hands, Delilah betrayed him. She lulled Samson to sleep on her lap and called for a man to shave off the 7 locks of his hair, thereby removing the strength God had given him. When Samson awoke, he realized his strength had left him, and this was the moment the Philistines had been waiting for. They quickly captured him, gouged out his eyes, and took him to prison in Gaza, where he was humiliated by grinding grain in a mill. Judges 16:21. The price for Delilah's betrayal was a generous reward. She received a total of 1,100 pieces of silver from the Philistine leaders, a considerable sum reflecting the importance of defeating Samson to Israel's enemies. Judges 16:5. Although Delilah is scarcely mentioned in the Bible after Samson's capture, she left an indelible mark on this story. Her betrayal not only caused Samson great pain, but also marked a pivotal turning point in Israel's history. Yet, even though Delilah succeeded in weakening Samson, her actions were not without consequences. As Samson remained imprisoned, his hair began to grow back, signaling that his strength from God was slowly returning. During a Philistine festival at the temple of Dagon, Samson prayed to God, asking for strength once more to avenge his enemies. God heard his prayer, and Samson brought down the temple of Dagon, killing thousands of Philistines along with himself. Judges 16:28-30. Samson's final act avenged the betrayal and suffering he endured, but also dealt a severe blow to the Philistine leadership. Although Delilah is not mentioned in this decisive moment, her role in Samson's downfall is undeniable. The story of Delilah is not just a tale of betrayal, but also a powerful warning about the consequences of greed, manipulation, and immorality. She sacrificed honesty and ethics for personal gain, resulting in a legacy of deceit and cruelty. Delilah's legacy serves as a warning about the destructive power of greed and manipulation. Her story is not just about the downfall of a great man, but also exposes those behind sinister plots, individuals who used greed to manipulate and betray in order to satisfy their own selfish goals. The story of Potiphar's wife is a prime example of manipulation, lust, and the dangers of deceit. She represents not only temptation, but also serves as a testament to how weakness and greed can lead one astray. Potiphar's wife lived in ancient Egyptian society, where power and ambition were often the driving forces behind human actions. It was within this environment that people like her could manipulate others to fulfill their personal desires. Potiphar, her husband, was a high-ranking officer in the Egyptian army and the captain of Pharaoh's guard, which gave his family significant influence in society. Joseph, one of Jacob's sons, was sold into slavery by his brothers and later bought by Potiphar to serve in his household. Potiphar recognized Joseph's talent and exceptional managerial abilities, and also saw that God was with Joseph, making all his endeavors prosper. This led to Joseph becoming a trusted and reliable figure in his household. However, despite being a wealthy and powerful woman, Potiphar's wife found no satisfaction in her life. She began to take an interest in Joseph, who had been entrusted with an important role in Potiphar's household. The Bible describes her as a woman full of lust, perhaps driven by boredom or a desire for control, although Joseph firmly refused her, reminding her that he could not sin and betray God, Genesis 39:7-10, Potiphar's wife did not give up. As Joseph continued to refuse, Potiphar's wife resorted to a vile plan. One day, when no one was in the house, she grabbed Joseph's cloak and demanded that he sleep with her. Joseph, resolute in preserving his integrity and loyalty to God, fled from her, leaving his cloak in Potiphar's wife's hands. In her anger and feeling betrayed, Potiphar's wife falsely accused Joseph of assault, using the cloak as evidence to accuse him. Genesis 39:11-18. Potiphar's wife's false accusation led to Joseph's arrest and imprisonment, despite his innocence. Potiphar, after hearing his wife, became enraged and ordered Joseph to be imprisoned in the king's prison. Genesis 39:19-20. Potiphar's wife, through deception and scheming, caused Joseph to pay a heavy price. However, what is remarkable is that, although she harmed Joseph, her betrayal was not the end for him, but rather a part of God's greater plan. In prison, Joseph continued to receive God's presence and blessings, and he kept rising through the ranks because of his managerial skills and integrity. Genesis 39:21-23. Joseph's story in prison was a pivotal moment in his life. Through his wisdom, Joseph interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh's two servants, the cupbearer and the baker, which eventually led to his interpretation of Pharaoh's dreams. This event opened the door for Joseph to rise to the second highest position in Egypt, where he oversaw preparations for the impending famine, saving not only Egypt, but also his own family. Genesis 41. Although there is no direct record of the punishment Potiphar's wife faced, her actions could not conceal the truth of God's justice. While she had destroyed Joseph's life in the short term, ultimately, her deceit and betrayal paved the way for Joseph to fulfill the role God had destined for him. The story of Potiphar's wife is a clear testimony that even if people manipulate the truth to harm others, ultimately, God's plan will still be fulfilled. The legacy of Potiphar's wife serves as a warning about the destructive impact of deceit and greed, especially when schemes are used to manipulate and destroy others. Her actions not only harmed Joseph, but also painfully reflect the sins that people can commit when driven by lust and the desire for power. In conclusion, the stories of these women serve as profound warnings about the dangers of unchecked ambition, deceit, and idolatry. Each of their stories is a clear testimony of the serious consequences of losing moral integrity and faithfulness to God. We can learn from their mistakes, striving for honesty, loyalty, and reverence in our own lives. By nurturing humility, integrity, and devotion to God, we can avoid the destructive path that these women chose. Their lives are powerful reminders of the consequences of forgetting God's commandments and the virtues of love, justice, and faith. Live in a way that our lives bring glory to God, promote good things, and lead to a fulfilled life filled with divine favor. Thank you for watching this video. If you found it helpful, don't forget to subscribe and like the video. May God bless you. Amen.